Thank you for tuning in to the animated review. So, this is a long form video on Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks, and it basically covers who he is, where he came from, and what makes him who he is. Let's get to it. Uncle Ruckus is the black anti-black character from the Boondocks who we love to hate. He was first gifted to us in season 1, episode 1 of the Boondocks, and this shows you how important he was to the show. When the first episode debuted in 2005, like I said in my last video, the world went crazy for it. Before the Boondocks, there had been other black animated TV shows like the PJs, but the PJs focused more on insulting black people, and it was not the Boondocks, and that was evident from the very first episode of the Boondocks. Arguably, other than Huey and his family, Uncle Ruckus is one of the most important characters on the Boondocks. He represents a crucial, undeniable part of the black identity. You can think of Uncle Ruckus as Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and Candace Owens all condensed down into one toxically self-hating black person. The most important thing, though, is that Uncle Ruckus's sad upbringing is indicative of who he would become, so you could have guessed that. Born July 4th, 1939, Uncle Ruckus is a Cancer, and his personality reflects that perfectly. But you have to think about the era in which Uncle Ruckus was born. July 4th, that's Independence Day. 1939 is the tail end of the Great Depression and right before or when America was entering into World War II. And Uncle Ruckus is a Cancer and his last name is Ruckus. All of that together is symbolism and it's telling you who Uncle Ruckus is going to be. He was born in a very chaotic period in American history, and therefore he is just as chaotic. He goes from 0 to 100 as quick as anybody. He also has a very short temper that's shorter than Miley Cyrus's hair, and he's generally non-violent, but his rhetoric is acid, and this leads to many fallouts between him and Huey. Throughout the show, several of Uncle Ruckus's family members appeared. These family members include, but are not limited to, Uncle Ruckus's daddy. He's deceased on the show. And then you have Bunny Ruckus, that's his mother. Daryl Ruckus is his younger brother. And he has at least one more other younger brother. And he has a grandmother named Nellie Ruckus. And he has a great uncle. I don't know the guy's name, but these are the family members that he has, and calling them a dysfunctional family would be an understatement. Uncle Ruckus is at odds with every single person in his family. The most complicated relationship Uncle Ruckus has is with him and his father. Uncle Ruckus grew up with an impatient father named Mr. Ruckus, as I said before, and Mr. Ruckus would lay hands on Uncle Ruckus like a baptism. Mr. Ruckus had very low expectations of his son, and he often made him feel less than a human. There is not 1 ounce of love lost between these two men. But making things even worse for Uncle Ruckus is the fact that he has a mother who is the way that she is. She is the person who praises white people and trashes black people. She idolizes every single thing white and she thinks very lowly of everything black. And she's probably the person that introduced Uncle Ruckus to the Church of White Jesus, which honors, as the title suggests, and I don't know how else to put it, white Jesus. But think about this. Uncle Ruckus was born sometime before World War II and in the midst of the Great Depression. For those who might not know how bad the Great Depression was, imagine showing up to your bank and being told, "We don't have your money," and being handed a handwritten IOU as a form of payment for your cash that was washed away overnight in the stock market in which you put so much of your trust. Yeah, it was Sam Cassell ugly to say the least. So, Uncle Ruckus grew up poor with a father who abused him verbally and physically, and a mother who found beauty in everything white and none in her own son. This would explain Uncle Ruckus's similar but more outlandish behavior. For example, his love of whiteness led him to defend the very same cops who shot at him. He didn't want any compensation whatsoever for the shooting. All he wanted was a badge and to be a police officer, so as he put it, basically torment and harass other black people. Although the very fictional existence of Uncle Ruckus grinds our gears like meth heads grind their teeth, he is extremely important and integral to the show. Uncle Ruckus is a proud Confederate flag waving conservative, and he is a microcosm of an identity that truly exists within the black community. But through him, the creator of the show does an excellent job of exposing the toxicity that can be a part of the black conservative identity. This is not always the case, but it can be in some instances. And Uncle Ruckus is opposite everything Huey is in the show. Huey is deep, supportive of the black plight, aware of systemic racism, and ready to go at it with anybody over what he believes in. His ideals clash with those of Huey and the general audience, that is, Uncle Ruckus's. In a world where Uncle Ruckus does not exist, Huey couldn't be challenged so directly to defend his own beliefs, and in a way, his repeated run-ins with Uncle Ruckus only makes Huey sharper and more determined in defending what he believes in, and those interactions refuel the already burning fire for freedom for black people within Huey. Opposite of Huey is Huey's grandfather, Robert Freeman III. Robert Freeman defines himself by the alleged work he put in during the civil rights movement, although some episodes call into question his actions during the civil rights movement and if he was a force at all or if he did anything. Naturally, though, Robert Freeman would be an enemy to Uncle Ruckus, but he and Uncle Ruckus are about the same age, and therefore they share some experiences and they know what it's like to be in the midst of racial tension in history. They just perceive it differently. Mr. Freeman often refers to Uncle Ruckus as a quote unquote friend, and his describing Uncle Ruckus in this manner is important for several reasons. To begin with, Mr. Freeman is exercising being a bigger man and accepting the person, Uncle Ruckus, for who he is. He does not share the same views as Uncle Ruckus and sometimes he clashes with him. Still, he not only tolerates Uncle Ruckus, he accepts him. This is probably a comment on the black community as a whole by the creator of the show. The sentiment is we all have that one person in our gigantic family, but we have to accept them for who they are, even if we disagree with them. However, accepting a person for who they are in your family doesn't mean being quiet when they speak or not challenging them when they spew stuff that you don't like. It means the opposite. It means accepting them, letting them finish their sentence, hearing them out, and responding in kind. We all have an Uncle Ruckus in our family, and the best thing we can do for them is accept them the same way Robert Freeman does Uncle Ruckus. But anyway, that's my take on who Uncle Ruckus is, his background, where he came from. If you have not, go ahead and press that subscribe button. I see a lot of you come back, but you aren't subscribed. Thank you for tuning in to the Animated Review.